June 1st, 1967, the Beatles released Sgt. Pepper. Do you remember how long it was before you actually bought your copy?
Well, I didn't buy my copy. It was given to me. And again, I was 14 years old, almost 15 when the album came out. My birthday's later in June. My girlfriend at the time gave it to me for my birthday. And so the album came out June 1st, I think June 2nd in the U.S., and 3 weeks later, she gave it to me.
Had you heard anything between then and, within those 3 weeks, oh, you've got to hear this album or anything?
I don't recall hearing a lot of advance buzz on it. I just knew there was a new album coming out. And you got to understand that, growing up in a small town in Rhode Island in the 60s, we didn't have a lot of access to a lot of stuff. There was radio. But if I wanted to go buy an album, there was one place in town to buy it at a department store, and their record collection wasn't that good. You'd have to go to Providence. I wasn't driving. I'd have to have money. I wasn't working. So I think nowadays, when something comes out, you go out and get it if you want it. In those days, not so much. You had to wait till somebody gave it to you.
You can hear it on YouTube. You can download it, and all of that this day. But like you said, then you had to go to that record store, and if that record store didn't have it, you didn't.
Too bad.
All right, so a couple weeks pass. You get this record from your girlfriend. What went through? Were you already a big Beatles fan before Pepper?
Oh, huge. Yeah. And just the brief backstory on that was when they first played on Ed Sullivan in February of '64, my sister and I were not allowed to watch it. Our parents thought, like a lot of folks did, that this was going to be a corrupting influence. And all my friends saw it. And I think that's what really instilled in me this Beatlemania that I never got over to this day. I mean, I'm a huge fan, as you know. We both are. And I had been a Beatles fan, and, I owned Revolver, which had come out, 6 months or 8 or 9 months before Sgt. Pepper. So we were getting a taste of the turn the Beatles had taken. But when Sgt. Pepper came out, it confused me.
Okay, I was just going to ask you, what was the first thing that went through your head whenever you turn it on, you hear Pepper, Help from My Friends, Lucy and the Sky with Diamonds, after you heard it the first time through, what, you said it confused you. What confused you? What went through your head?
In my mind, in my little 15-year-old mind at the time, it was, this music is too complicated for me. It's got all this orchestration to it. There are different layers, different textures to the songs. If you've been used to the 4-piece band that I had been used to that came out of Liverpool, 3 guitars and a drummer, maybe some keyboards here and there, this was really a big departure. And it took me quite a while to get used to it. And I played it, and I played it more and more. And the more I played it, the more I realized this is really extraordinary.
Yeah, and, well, like you said, Revolver was a little bit of a shift, and we're getting all those backwards tapes and things, and classical instrument, Paul's Eleanor Rigby on Revolver. So, like you said, there was a little bit of a hint, foreshadowing of it, but so for you, Pepper was still way out there, even with the hints that you got from Revolver and maybe even Rubber Soul?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was unlike anything I'd ever heard before, and certainly was unlike anything the Beatles had done before. And, the Beatles were pretty much set the agenda for so much of pop music in the 60s. I mean, there were a lot of great bands, but the Beatles were far and above everybody else. And I was a huge fan, and I stuck with it. And, I think by far it's certainly the most significant album they've ever done, and one of the most important albums that come out of the last half of the 20th century.
Yeah, well, Rolling Stone magazine did one of their greatest albums of all time, and Pepper was number one at one point. I think now actually it's Revolver, but yeah, obviously Sgt. Pepper has that reputation that, oh, that's your Sgt. Pepper. It almost becomes a catchphrase for something, a peak of whatever it is you do. And so after it took a little bit of time to register and you got used to it, what else? How else did it change the way you saw the Beatles, the way you saw music, the way you saw things?
This album was so revolutionary on a lot of levels. The music itself, as we've talked about, but their appearance, they're playing, they have alter egos now, and they're wearing these costumes.
And mustaches.
Yes, and people were used to the long hair, and, we were all growing our hair long, or trying to, as long as our parents will let us. But now this facial hair is coming in. And so all of a sudden you've got guys are wearing long hair, and they're wearing mustaches and beards, like the Beatles had adopted for Sgt. Pepper. So it's affecting dress styles, it's affecting music, It's affecting attitude. Despite disclaimers to the contrary, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, I know it's about a drawing that John's son did, so he says. Maybe not.
It took the title from there, but obviously if you listen to the album, it's not just about that.
Right.
know,
No, yeah. So, but to answer your question, I think it changed a lot of people's heads at the time, and it certainly did mine. And I was at that impressionable age, as a teenager at 15, and I went with it. I mean, I embraced it.